select this topic in the Mother's Day, and we have two speakers lined up there. I would like my secretary, Dr. Jagat, to invite the introduction of the speakers. Jagat, are you there? Until he join, actually, I would like to say we are going to start a legal aid program to our doctors when they are in a dilemma in managing these gender-based violence cases once patients come. So we will soon circulate the flyer also. So now Jagat will introduce our speakers as he's not joined. Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Priyanti, I have joined the meeting. Can you hear me?
You can introduce the first speaker.
Yeah, and good evening, everyone, for this evening. And I am going to introduce Dr.
Jagat, we can't hear you.
Sorry.
No, we can hear him.
Yeah, I have unmuted. Madam, can you hear me?
Yes.
So then I will continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope the others also can hear.
Yes. Our first.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Good evening, Anjali.
Good evening.
Good evening to you. So I'll mute my phone. Sorry, my line, and go the video so that once I'll be online, and once the presentation is over, I'll come back.
So then welcome everyone. So I'm going to introduce you our today guest speaker, Dr. Nethanjalee Mapitigama. She is consultant community physician, and after obtaining her MD, first medical degree, she joined the MSc program in the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, Columbia University, and obtained her community medicine MD degree in 1995. And then after, special about herself is she is the first ever national program manager for the Gender and Women's Women's Health, that is in the Family Health Bureau, and she has been working there 25 years alone, and she retired in 2024, and she awarded fellowship in the College of Community Physician, and also at present she is counseling for the WHO and the United Nations Population Funds. And please, madam, would you please start your lecture now?
Thank you, Jagat. Good evening, everyone. Firstly, I will have to thank Dr. Priyanti Premaratne from the Women's and Children's Subcommittee of the College of General Practitioners and the College of General Practitioners for inviting me to speak to you on this very important subject. Okay, so we'll start. Let me share the screen. So today, within this 1 hour, I'll try my best to talk to you on gender, and at least to sensitize you on gender and GBV and your role in identifying these survivors and supporting them. So we would be talking on gender-based violence, then what does the health sector do, and your role. So first of all, to define sex and gender, because although we think that we know what gender is, most of the time, most of us are not very sure of what gender is. So the difference between sex and gender is, sex means the real biological differences between men and women. And these differences are normally permanent and universal. Everywhere in the world, it would be the same. But gender is different. Gender refers to the the norms, roles, and social relations between men and women. So, because it's connected with the social relations, this is constructed by the society, socially constructed. Because of that, it varies from one society to the other society. So, the gender roles of in a certain society may change from another society. Then another term that we come across when we talk about gender is gender stereotyping. So gender stereotyping means it is an image or a frame constructed by the society for the man and the woman, a separate frame for the man, a separate frame for the woman. So the gender roles and norms means a man or a woman has to fit in to the perfect frame that the society has arranged or fixed for them. If they don't fit in correctly to the fitted frame, then the society would reject them. And the man or the woman who fits in are being rewarded. The man who does not or the woman who does not would be penalized, rejected. So, in other words, in very simple terms, this is what gender stereotyping is, gender roles stereotyping is. This is how a woman should look like, and this is the role of the man. Then another term that we come across when we talk about gender is gender equity and gender equality. You may have heard about these two words. Right? Most of the people think that these two terms are similar. No, they're not similar. So by looking at this picture, you would understand the difference. Equality means you provide something equally to all. But the needs are different. The requirement is different. So the needs will not be fulfilled because the same resources have been supplied. But equity means the resources or whatever we give would be equivalent to their needs or requirements. So actually what we need is equity. We supply according to the requirement. So ultimately, if equity is fulfilled, knowingly or unknowingly, we have come to equality level, because all would now here in this picture, all would be able to pluck the fruits. Okay, so when we talk about gender now, mainly we talk about binary, the man and the woman, but we have to identify there is another party, the third gender, which I'm not going to talk about in this short 1 hour. So ideally, what I tried to tell you is sex and gender are not interchangeable terms. They are different terms, although we try to use them interchangeably. So the differences between the gender and sex, as I said, gender is structured by the society, social structure, and we learn the gender roles from childhood and we perform. And it can change with time, it can change with place, it can change with culture, society, etc. But sex is universal, it's a biological construction, and it's inborn and it will not change. And males and females everywhere, anywhere in the universe will be the same. If we talk about the health inequalities related to gender, people would get diseases and conditions due to their biological differences, due to their sex differences. Also, they might get some diseases, some conditions due to the societal gender differences, the norms and the roles that they perform. And also, there are interplay between the two. So, these are just for you to know. It's higher with regard to injuries, toxic exposures, mortality, and social discrimination. I feel that my connection is unstable, so please excuse me. I would like to switch off my video. Right. Okay, so when we talk about gender, gender affects an individual not only during a certain period of the life cycle, but during the whole life cycle, from womb to the tomb. So I'm not going to go into details because of the time constraint. So with now from the slides that I talked to you, you might be able to identify the difference between these sentences, whether it's a sentence talking about gender or whether it's a sentence on sex. I will go through one or two. Only women can conceive and give birth. So that is a statement with regard to sex, because males will not be able to do that. Most men are taller than women. That is also something with regard to sex, because it's biological. Then women are more loving and caring is a gender statement. Men are the best chefs, again, a gender statement. The most important role of a woman is to become a mother is a gender statement. Men think and act more rationally than women, again, gender. So I think because of the time, I will skip that. I think you got some idea. So what I wanted to tell you is, beyond biological sex, there are the gender has created different roles, different rights, and different obligations to individuals. So when we consider this, it's not just different, it's unequal. Not just unequal, but subordinate. So because of this subordinance, there is a discrimination. This results in discrimination, and this is called gender discrimination. So from the two parties, one party is being discriminated and being subordinated. So that is the problem here. So the biggest discrimination, the worst discrimination ever is the gender-based violence, the violence which is created or which is based on gender. So this is the definition of gender-based violence, but there are many, there is no one definition, there are many definitions, but all these definitions try to say the same thing in different terms and different sentences. So here what they say is, it is any type of violence based on gender, which would result in physical, sexual, mental harm or suffering to not only to women, also to men, because when we talk about gender-based violence, 90 to 95% of the time it is the women who suffer, but we can't forget that there is a certain percentage of men who are suffering from gender-based violence as well. So not only the physical, sexual or mental harm, but also the deprivation of liberty and threats. All these things also come as gender-based violence. And also, not only in the public, not only in the private life, but also in the public life, whatever violence that is caused is called gender-based violence. Normally, people think that if it happens in the marriage, privately, it is their business. It's not gender-based violence, but it is, whether it happens privately or publicly, it's gender-based violence. Then we come across this term also, intimate partner violence. So intimate partner violence is one type of, or the major type of intimate partner, the gender-based violence. So that is within an intimate relationship, the violence that is caused by one partner to the other partner. So when we call an intimate relationship, it might be the current partner, previous partner, living companion, or in the third gender, it may be in the same sex relationships from one partner to the other partner. So when we talk about the magnitude of the problem, it is like the iceberg phenomenon, right? What we see, what we hear, what we see in news or newspapers is only the tip of the iceberg, but the rest is hidden underneath. So some reasons why it's hidden. These are only some of them. Feelings of fear, feelings of shame, because if it happens in the family, all, not only the husband and wife, but also the immediate family members would try to conceal it or to cover it. And also the feelings of guilt. Some may think that it's my fault, because of that, I'll have to keep quiet. And the economic dependence. If the person is, especially our women, if they are depending on the husband, then they just accept that in silence. Shelter, again, dependence. Social and cultural pressures, as I said, and for the sake of the children. So when we look at the prevalence, this is only one study done by WHO. So they did this study in 10 countries in the world, and they found out generally 1 in 3 women in the world would suffer violence at least once during their lifetime from their intimate partner. When we come to Sri Lanka, what is the Sri Lankan situation? Demographic and health survey, which is done normally every 5 to 6 years in many countries in the world. This is the latest one which was done in Sri Lanka. It was done in only 2016. The results showed us that 1 in 5 women had suffered violence from the intimate partner during the last 12 months. And during the lifetime, 2 out of 5 women have suffered violence. This is another study done done throughout the island, and it was called Women's Wellbeing Survey. And again, they looked at the violence caused by the intimate partners, and it showed that 18.9% of women in the survey have had violence from the partner at least once during their lifetime, and 27.5% of the women, 27.9% of the women have experienced psychological violence from the partner during their lifetime. If we look at the societal attitudes about violence, so that is the normal attitudes of the society with regard to violence. So I would like to quote a study which was done among general practitioners of Sri Lanka in 2 districts of the country. And these are some of the results that we got. For one question, the response was, they have asked whether if there was a fight at home in the family within the husband and wife, whose responsibility is it to come to a remedy or to a solution. So about 40% of our doctors have said, yes, it is the wife's duty, it's the responsibility of the wife. Perfectly correct or mostly correct. So this is the idea of our educated community. Another question that was asked is, husband can demand sex anytime he feels like, because he's the husband and he has the marriage certificate. So again, about 30% of our educated community said, yes, perfectly correct or mostly correct. Another question, provocative dress is an important reason why women get raped. Again, about 60%, more than 60%, said yes, that is the reason. So these are our attitudes. So that is the educated crowd. What about these drivers? This was behind one of the three-wheelers. You can see the two pictures, problem and the solution. So now this three-wheeler goes on the road and everyone, even our children, see this. So they also learn this. They think, this is the solution. This is how we can settle this, solve this. This is another study which was done in Sri Lanka sometime back. They actually looked at the attitudes of the males on violence. And one question that they asked was whether they have done any sexual violence, including rape, against an intimate partner or a non-partner. Whether they have created any sexual violence or rape to another person, whether it's intimate or not. And from the people who said yes, they have asked why did they do it? And these were the answers. 66.5% said that is their sexual entitlement. Being a male, they are sexually entitled to do any sexual violence to a female. And roughly about 20% said we did it for fun or we were bored, so we did it. And 13.4 said, I did it as a punishment. I was angry, so I did it as a punishment. And 9.6 said I was under the influence of alcohol, so I had to do it. Now, this is also a long, actually, when we talk about the gender-based violence, we talk a lot about the reasons and the causes, but as the time is limited here, I just want to tell you, most of us think that there are many reasons or causes for gender-based violence. But actually, internationally, they say that there are only three causes for gender-based violence. The three causes are, and they call them as root causes, they consider them as root causes: disrespect for human rights, being a human, disrespecting the rights of the other human; abuse of power, they think the society has given some power to one party or one kind, and they abuse that power over the other party; and gender inequality. So these are the three causes of gender-based violence. All the other things that we think, the society think, are causes, like what are written on the trunk of this tree: alcohol, right? Alcohol is not a cause. Impunity, stigma, poverty, lack of education, all these things are not causes, but they have an association, they may contribute, but they are not causes. So you all have to know alcohol is not a cause and it is a misconception. And the perpetrators take this as an excuse and say, I was drunk, so that is why I did that. That is why I had to beat you, or I thrashed you. So that is because everyone would blame the alcohol, not the man. So when we look at the health consequences of gender-based violence, there are fatal consequences and non-fatal. And non-fatal can be divided into many categories: physical, mental problems, reproductive health issues, and high-risk behaviors, which would become addictions. So It is a major cause of disability and death among women, and this could affect an individual throughout the life cycle from the womb to the tomb. And this has many negative health and non-health outcomes which would affect the individual, then the immediate family, then the society and the community at large. And these effects can be seen transgenerationally, affecting the children and their adulthood. This don't come from genes, but they learn from observing. And if it happens in pregnancy, it would lead to many negative pregnancy outcomes. So these are some of them. We all know that, being doctors, so I'm not going into details. So one or two words about the children. We talk about the women, the survivors who suffer, but children are the silent victims. They suffer silently. And these are some of the effects on the children. Sometimes they have behavioral problems, they have low self-esteem and interpersonal difficulties. They can't have any relationship. They mistrust the others. They lack the social skills. Then they have the psychosomatic illnesses. They have stomach aches, headaches. They don't like to go to school. Poor performance in school. And worst thing, they have a higher probability of becoming a perpetrator as an adult, if it is a male, or higher probability of becoming a victim if it's a female. Not from genes, but from observing and experiencing violence at home. So that is what is called normalization of GBV. They think it's normal in family life. So in the health sector, what do we do? How do we tackle this? How do we respond to this problem in the health sector? So I have to tell you that this is a social problem. Because of that, not only the health sector is responsible, there are many other sectors which are responsible for responding to this problem. But health sector also has a major responsibility which the other sectors will not be able to handle. So we have our responsibility totally in handling this problem. So what is the agency in the health ministry which is responsible for this? Family Health Bureau. Family Health Bureau is the directorate which is responsible for women's health, including gender and gender-based violence in the country. So the Family Health Bureau has many programs with regard to preventing or prevention of gender-based violence and responding to survivors or supporting the survivors who are already suffering. So I'm not going into details. So the preventive healthcare workers have a responsibility. They have a dual responsibility. On one hand, they have to prevent the occurrence of gender-based violence. On the other hand, they will have to identify the survivors and support them and help them. So you all know that the public health sector or the public health, the MOH, Medical Officer of Health, is the manager, and this happens at the divisional level. All the divisions have a manager, and he's called Medical Officer of Health, and he has a team: public health nursing sister, supervising public health midwife, public health inspectors, and the supervisors. So the whole team is responsible. They have their roles and responsibilities, so which they have to perform in order to prevent and also to help the survivors. I'm sorry, the data is only up to 23 because I retired in 24, but this is just to show you that the number of GBV survivors identified by the public health staff. In 23, they have identified 25,000 odd survivors and helped them. So this is, mind you, this is only the tip of the iceberg, right? There are many more in the society. So that is the public health workers. Then other than that, in the curative sector, the main program that we have in supporting and helping the survivors is the Mithuru PSA program. So Mithuru PSA is a center which is situated or established in a hospital and catered, or the services are supplied by a medical officer and a nursing officer. And these officers are trained by the Family Health Bureau on supporting the survivors. And normally this center is placed at the outpatient department, and this center is linked within other services in the hospital and outside the hospital as well. So the survivors can come to the Mithuru PSA. Normally they are referred to the Mithuru PSA from the field health staff who identify them, from the hospital itself, from the OPD, wards, clinics, units, anywhere. And the other field staff who are responsible, maybe from the divisional officers from the Women's Ministry, police, codes, social services department, from anywhere. And sometimes they come on their own. And the main thing is that you don't have to have a formal referral to come to the Mithuru PSA. Any person can just walk in. If you identify any of our survivors, you can just ask them to go to the nearest Mithuru PSA. So, and Mithuru PSA, what does the Mithuru PSA do? Mithuru PSA provides the basic emotional support. That is what Mithuru PSA provides. And then refer them, if they need further care within the hospital or outside the hospital, they would be referred for further care. And we have Mithuru PSAs, our target was to have a Mithuru PSA center in all the hospitals which provide specialized care, that is up to base hospital B level. So I think now we have about 130 odd hospitals in the country up to base hospital B level. Now we have about 90 odd Mithuru PSA centers, so we have to establish further about 30 to 40 more centers to fulfill our requirement. So this is again up to 23 only. So in 2023, we have catered, the Mithuru PSA centers have catered 12,000 odd survivors. They have helped, they have assisted 12,000 odd survivors. Again, this is only the tip of the iceberg. We have missed the rest, all of them, most of them. Right. So where have these referrals come from? When we look at this, it's very pathetic to see that most of them, that is why we have missed, because most of them have come from the hospital, wards, clinics, because the hospital knows that there's a place like this and they're confident that they would help and they have enough time to to talk to them. So they refer. And 16.5% have come from the police and the courts, which is very encouraging. They also believe in us. So they send us these. And field health staff, only 6%, which is not enough. And field health staff, non-health staff, and maybe if you also have done this, maybe you also come into this category. And 10.7, self-referrals. These are some of the, sorry. I have had some photographs of the survivors. I have taken them off, but I have forgotten to take that off. This is another thing, that Mithuru PSA has a 24/7 national helpline. I think this is very important to you. If you come across any of our survivors, please let them know that there is a number, and the services are provided by a trained medical officer. That is, the medical officers who work or who uh, provide services in our Mithurupias. 10 of them provide services on a roster basis. So the advice or they would be talking to a trained medical officer. So this is very important. And from all the 3 languages, right throughout the day and every day of the year, 24/7 national helpline. Right, now we come to the service provision. There are barriers. That is why most of them don't come. Provider barriers. Some of the reasons. We as practitioners, we have our misinformation, our misconceptions, right? So we also don't know whether it's a problem, whether we should treat, or whether it's our responsibility, and we don't have the clinical skills. That's not our problem, because during our basic training, even me, during our basic training, this was not included our basic training curricula, because at that time people didn't know that this health, the medical personnel also had a responsibility. So we don't know, we lack clinical skills and the structural issues. Now, especially most of you also must be working in the government sector as well. So in the OPD, you have limited time, limited training, then limited space. These are very sensitive things, sensitive issues. So you can't talk to these survivors in public. When the others are listening, they will not, definitely they will not come out. So there are so many structural problems. And also the confusion of the practitioner. They don't know how to do this, when to do this, how to write the report, right? And the legal information. Then from the patient side, patient is also scared, because if this practitioner goes and tells my husband, and if he gets to know, then it would be escalating violence. And if so, I would lose the custody of my children. And this is a medical officer, or I have come to the hospital. How can they help me? Because there's a social problem. They also don't know. And also, if they start blaming me, if this person also starts blaming you, you have done something wrong, that is why you were beaten, then it would be re-victimization, right? So because of all these reasons, they also don't talk about this. Okay, how to identify the perpetrator? What is the profile of the perpetrator? There is no such profile, right? They can come from any age, any religion, any race, socioeconomic level, occupation, educational background, or sexual orientation. So because of that, we have to be on the lookout. We have to be vigilant. There is no profile for the perpetrator. There is no profile for the survivor as well, right? So we can't say the survivor would be of this ethnicity or this religion or this age or this religion or this educational background. Even the educated people are being battered. So there is no difference, no classical, typical model. Okay, so what is your role? First, you have to identify the survivor. It's very challenging because, as we said, patients will not declare. They will come with psychosomatic symptoms. Then you will have to judge. Here, they have psychosomatic symptoms, so this might be violence. And also, the perpetrator may be with the victim, so they will not divulge. So we have to have a high degree of suspicion and vigilance. So what is our role? Identify the survivor, listen to them, provide the needed medical care, plus emotional support. If you can't do that, please refer her or let her know of the services which are available. For an example, the Mithuru PSL. So that let them know that these services are available. When to suspect? I think you know most of these, right? Anxiety, depression, if you know that this person is depressed, or if they come with self-harm, if they come with repeated injuries, repeated STIs, unwanted pregnancies, unexplained chronic pain. Most of these psychosomatic patients, they come with chronic pain. Here, pain and ache here, and after 2 weeks, another area, aching, paining. Then repeated consultations, they always come to OPD every 2 weeks. The husband or the partner is intrusive during the consultations. They try to be so helpful. Misses healthcare appointments, they can't come to the appointments because of the violence at home. And the children have behavioral and emotional problems. So these are also some of the reasons. Because of the time constraint, I'm going to miss that. Okay. Now, the client who comes to you would be of 3 types. Type 1, she's coming to you, she's ready to divulge. Are you asking something or?
No, madam,
Make your microphone mute. Okay, so there are 3 types. Type 1, she's coming to disclose. So if the environment is peaceful, favorable, she will disclose. Type 2, she's not sure. If you ask in the proper way, she might tell. Type 3, she's not going to tell you, right? So these are the 3 types. Anyhow, violence, we have to keep in mind, violence is not answer for any reason. And when we provide the services, we have to be very vigilant not to endanger our lives and survivors' life. And the privacy and confidentiality should be maintained to the highest level. We have to respect them, we have to empathize with them, and we have to have competency to handle them. So these are guiding principles and we call them golden rules. Okay, so now how do we ask? If you suspect, how do we ask? We have to ask indirectly, is everything okay at home? I have seen other women with problem like yours. Do you want to discuss anything else? Any other problem that you are suffering with? Can you tell something about your life at home? Something like this. So indirectly, you have to get into the problem. If any disclosure happened, then you can ask direct questions. Has your partner ever threatened to hurt you? Are you afraid of your partner? Does he bully you or insult you? Or does he try to control you? And has he forced you into sex? Things like that with the consent of the client. But the third person who does not want to disclose, if she doesn't want, you suspect, but she says, no, I don't have any problem, then please do not pressure her. Do not blame her for doing that, but just offer her information. These services are, if someone you know is suffering from something like this, then these services are available. There's a place called Mithuru PSL. You can go there or you can send them. So just provide the information and give her time. She might return. She might come on another day, but don't pressurize. So if someone dies, I'll just say, okay, with your questions, if she tries to tell you, then there is a pathway of care. And we call it first line support. And it is called lives. L is listen, I inquire, V validate, E enhance safety, S supporting. Okay. Again, the same thing. You have to be empathetic, non-judgmental, privacy and confidentiality to the maximum level. Don't try to find solutions for them. It's not our business. No why questions. Why did he hit you? For any reason, no person can hit another person, another human, right? So no whys and no advice. Why not why? Because it's very important not to re-victimize the person, the client, right? So please avoid blaming the person. And there is no excuse, no justification for any violence. Whatever problem, whatever issue, there are solutions. There are other ways of remedies or other solutions, but not violence. Violence is not an excuse. So don't ask. Normally, we are used to that. Why did that happen? Why did he hit you? No, don't ask why. And the other thing, no advice, please. Because as medical personnel, we are very competent of providing advices. Here, no advice. The best thing that we can do is listening. Listening well and responding with empathy to show them that we understand and we are with them, that we see that she has a problem and we are trying to, we feel that, we empathize. And we try to empower them, but not to find solutions for them. So we help them for them to find their own path. I know that it's not that easy for us because as medical personnel, we have been taught to diagnose the problem, treat the problem, or advise, give medical advice, do this, don't do this, take this medicine, like that. But here, it's different. It's different. So we have to add a human focus to this. We have to listen. We have to identify her needs, her concerns, and try to strengthen her, empower her, and also to find social support. And also, if she's in danger, to enhance the safety. So listening, active listening, lives, L. Active listening means it has to be interactive, engaging process. The client should feel that you are listening. So it's not only verbal, also the non-verbal cues also have to be, the client should feel that this person is listening to me. The eye contact, the nodding, showing that you are listening to her or him, right? So the eyes, ears, and heart should work. So all these things together, that is, when all these three act together, then you would be a very good listener, right? And also give her time. We have to give time. Because you can't, like, although we have other patients, if the person wants time, she might cry, she might be silent for some time, but that has to be allowed. Okay. Then the next one, lives. We listened, then we inquire. We inquire about their needs. What would you like to talk about? How do you feel about it? I feel that you seem to be upset. To show them that you are concerned. Could you tell me more about it? Can you explain it? Can you be more like open-ended questions? And to identify, help her to express herself. And at the end, to summarize, you said, so that she knows that you have been listening. Then the third one, V, LIV, validate, showing her that I understood, I believed in you. It's not your fault, you're not to be blamed, right? Whatever happened, violence cannot be accepted. It's okay to talk. There is help. These people think that they are helpless. That is why they go and commit suicide. They think there's no one to help her, support her. They think everyone is blaming. Why did you do that? That is why you were beaten, right? You should have shut your mouth and waited. So many things. So validate and show the client that you understand, you believe, and you feel her. Then LIVE, enhance safety. Assess safety after disclosure. Now just see whether she is safe, whether she's safe to go home. Now I'm just talking about the topics, right? If you want more details, you'll have to go read more. Okay, the last one is supporting. So now you know the problem, you validated the problem, now you try to help them. So listening to her was also a great help, because there's no one for her to talk about, pour this out, pour her grievances out. Then you can refer them to a nearby Mitropesa center. Or if she needs legal aid or other services from the divisional secretary office, that also can be arranged. Or if you don't have time, the best thing is to send her to a Mitropesa or the local divisional public health staff. So they would be able to attend to them, at least provide the information, which is very important. So these documents, these are available in the Family Health Bureau website and the UNFPA website. For more details, you can refer to the guideline for health workers and standard operating procedures for health workers. I think I managed within the stipulated time period. So I have 5 minutes more, I think. If you have 4 minutes. If you have any questions, I will be able to answer 1 or 2.
Madam, thank you very much for the concise and very informative lecture. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Madam, this may not be very straightforward, but I was just having a thought. Now, I have come across certain presentations where the father in a family would he would kind of blame, or he would shout at the son for not fitting into the perfect male persona where the father expects the son to be. Sometimes saying words in filth, say you are a woman, you are a eunuch. Madam, can this be categorized as a GBV? What is your opinion on this?
Yes,
and
of course.
How would we approach a situation like this?
Yeah, so that is why now during the throughout the life cycle, this has to be addressed, right? So the father was brought up in that way, so he thinks now he is trying his best to put the child or the son into that frame where he would be rewarded, as I said, right? So if he steps out of it, he is afraid that the society would reject the son. So why is that? Because he had been brought up in that culture, that manner. So it will take us maybe a few generations, if we start from today, to come to a certain level. So from throughout the life cycle, now our children should be taught that there is no such frame, right? That there's no rigid frame or norms and we have to respect each other, because from these frames, from these rigid norms and roles, not only the women but also the males suffer. Now here you are setting a very good example where you are talking about a very good example where the son is suffering, right? Even the father is not happy. That is why he is blaming the son, and the son is being harassed. So this affects both sexes, men and women. So for us to, it's a vicious cycle. So for us to break this, we'll have to intervene from all the stages, key stages of the life cycle. From the childhood, from the kindergarten days, at least from birth, this should be inculcated. Then the youths have to be, the adolescents, the youth in the schools, in the school curriculum, right? Everywhere this should be put into the minds of our children that you have to respect each other, you have to love each other, you have to help each other, and you have to share the responsibilities of the family, and there is no such rigid frame. Because all of us have our moods.
ඒක වෙන්නේ නැති. එහෙම මගුලක්ද ඕඩර් කෙරුවේ. ඒ ස්පෙෂල් කෑල්ලක් දැම්මම ඉතින් මොකක් හරි පිස්සුවක් දාන්න එපා ඉතින්.
Who is that?
Thank you very much for that insight. Why I asked that question was, not only in real life I have come across such situations. In a world famous book by Isabel Allende, the South American writer, in Livalura, this specific incident has been mentioned. So I believe it's a matter worldwide. That is why I wanted to know your output.
It's everywhere. That is why I said, even here we have it, no? Because now if the child falls and cries, they say, and if he's beaten by a boy, they'll say, you should have fought back. I wanted to go at it. So that is being taught from small days. You have to be masculine, you have to be like this, you have to fight the other people. So our power එක උගන්නනවා පුඩි කාලේ ඉඳලම. මේ power එකෙන් තමයි හැමදේම බේර ගන්න හදන්නේ. හැමදේම for everything they think the solution is beating or අතපය විසි කරන එක කියලා. That is what it is.
Thank you very much, madam.
Welcome. So then shall we call it a day because my time is over?
Hello. Can I just pose the last question?
Yes,
one last question,
Jagat,
please?
can you?
Yeah, yes. Are we giving?
May I can I ask a question, please?
Please, others can mute your mic. Tushar, Rafiq,
Is someone asking something?
Yes. Can I be allowed to ask a question, please?
Yes. I don't know if the organizers allow. I'm willing to.
Okay.
I'm willing to
Okay.
answer.
No, because I wasn't sure whether the time was over or not. Ma'am, now after listening to the whole lecture,
I can't hear you properly.
After, am I audible now?
Not that much. Anyway, I'll try my best to hear you, listen to you. Yeah.
Madam, now after listening to the whole lecture and taking into consideration the various scenarios that were put, real life scenarios.
Yes.
Now, I have a small question mark why this is called. I'm not totally against anything, but I have a question mark why this is called the term gender-based is used, because say for example, if a father in a family is abusive, we saw, I mean, like most of the lecture was done where the victim was like you were using she and her, and the victim was a woman. It is quite understandable in our society, in any society, that women get. I have seen it in my own family as well, and in my parents' family as well. So I have seen that. But then again, there was this issue. I mean, there was this example where a male goes and abuses another male in the form of a father abusing a son. So it's a little bit hard for me to. I mean, like if you take the whole picture, why this issue is called gender-based thing, where the same perpetrator will inflict his abusiveness to both women and men. And there are occasions which I have seen the same remarks made to a boy by this of his timidness by males and females as well, mothers and fathers as well. I have seen in my life where mothers have been, I mean, like they have, like what you were saying, to put into perspective the gender and sex difference. Now, taking for example, I mean, like, granted it is as such, a mother trying to, taking up to her, onto herself, a role which is more of a fatherly figure because of her nature. And I have actually seen in various families where a mother is very vociferous and a mother goes and says that to a son. And so it's a little bit confusing for me how it becomes, or is it a general thing rather than a gender based thing, or is this, are we talking about general violence?
No, general violence is different. If it is based on gender, the concept, the gender concept, then it is called gender-based violence. Now, the previous example, now the father is trying to fit the son into the frame, right? So the gender frame. So that is gender-based violence. But why we, most of the time, why we call her or she or her, because 90 to 95% of the time, it is the woman who is getting battered, who is subjected to violence. So that is why normally this term comes to our, when we talk like that. But we have to be mindful that even to our Mitropia centers, when we look at the attendance, 5 to 10% are males. Yes, and when a male is subjected to violence, then the stigma is more. Because of this frame and because of the societal attitudes, it's very difficult for him to come to a place and ask for help. The women, of course, yes, they can come. But if there is violence to a man based on gender, then it's very difficult because all the others would laugh at him, saying that you don't have a backbone.
Because of the social stereotype.
Now I think it's time for the next. Thank you very much, Madam. So Jagat, can we introduce the second speaker?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam, for your informative lecture. And as the time passing, I would like to introduce our next honored speaker. He's an attorney at law, Mr. Kaushalya Navaratne, and he's specialized in civil law and commercial law in Sri Lanka. His first academic remark was in 1996 as he joined the Bar Association of Sri Lanka as an attorney at law, and that is after completing his education in Law College, Sri Lanka. Early in his career, he served as a presidential counselor, and in addition to that, in Bar Association of Sri Lanka, he has held several positions. He was the secretary for the Bar Association of Sri Lanka from 2018 to 2020, and President of Bar Association from 2023 to 2025. Now it is over to you, Mr. Kaushalya Navaratne. Sir, are you hear me? Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me, Jagat?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now you can start your lecture.
Yeah, thank you very much for the kind words that you spoke about me. And further, I wish to extend my deepest appreciation to the Women and Children Affairs Subcommittee of the College of General Practitioners of Sri Lanka for inviting me to share some thoughts with regard to the matter which we are discussing today. And in fact, the Madam Nethanjalee Mapitigama, I think, spoke balance, and especially with regard to certain the incidents, and whilst referring to the options that are available for the victims. So perhaps I might repeat certain areas from our perspective as the legal practitioners, because presentation of Madam Mapitigama, and she was mainly concentrating on the areas which are relevant perhaps to the medical the practice. So therefore, I will basically starting from the some form of introduction to the topic as legal practitioners. I'll make my brief presentation, since there are time constraints, especially it's around 9:05 in the night. So I will formally knock off the video, since there is a form of a little issue relating the connection. So gender-based violence, when you talk gender-based violence, that is one of the most the widespread and complex forms of human rights violation in the modern society. This refers not only to physical violence, but also to sexual, emotional, psychological, related violence directed against individuals, sometimes on the basis of gender. So therefore, gender-based violence affects not only individuals across all social, economic, and cultural backgrounds, but frequently occurs within relationships of trust, dependency, authority. Like when Madam Mapitigama, when she spoke, this trust, dependency, and the authority, like especially like at a workplace. Sometimes the head of the institution perhaps may make certain advances towards a female worker, or a vice versa. That could be like, perhaps under the authority of the person, like, he's having some form of a control over the person. You are the person or a subordinate. So that's also could be kind of, basically brought back within the purview of the gender-based violence. So unlike the ordinary crimes, this gender-based violence often, takes places perhaps in the private spaces, such as homes, workplaces, and even in intimate relationships. So, like one can say, when you are married and when you have a wife or a husband, it is a kind of, as Madam Mapitigama pointed out, it's a free ticket for a person to have, a sexual, perhaps the intimacy, that your sexual relationships. But, with the passage of time, the law has evolved that you can't even have a physical relationship or a sexual relation with your own wife or a husband without the consent or the concurrence, we say. So therefore, like with the passage of time, the topic that we discuss, the law into gender-based violence has been important to take note, that making detection and prosecution significantly more difficult, because victims are frequently traumatized, fearful, sometimes socially isolated, or economically dependent on the perpetrators. Sometimes this, complicates the reporting and the legal intervention. So these are therefore certain areas that have to be taken into consideration when you advise a victim, and the victim handle the situation, especially when it comes to the medical practitioners. So therefore, the issue of gender-based violence extends beyond the personal or a domestic disputes. Now it has now become internationally recognized as a serious violation of fundamental human rights, and it is a crime or a attack on the human dignity. So this affects not only the physical well-being of a victim, but also their psychological, emotional, and social stability. Medical professionals in these circumstances are required perhaps to address physical and mental consequences. The legal institutions must ensure the accountability, the victim protection, and the access to justice. So this is very important because unlike the legal profession occurs mainly based on a voyage where a victim or the perpetrator, we are looking for the perpetrators and then to punish in terms of law. But when it comes to the medical practitioners, your duty or the obligation is little more beyond that. That is just to repair the damage, because especially in situations where the victims, it could be men, women, children, like anybody. So in order to repair the damage that has caused both physically and mentally, it is very important, as Madam Mapitigama pointed out, for the medical practitioners to identify the physical, perhaps or physical and mental suffering of the patient or the client. So therefore, I wish to kind of, as far as the topic in hand is concerned, to discuss these, the topic, especially on three main areas. One is the legal framework governing gender-based violence. Then secondly, the evidentiary standards applicable in gender-based violence cases. Then number three, judicial challenges affecting the administration of justice. So these I will very briefly deal with these three areas, so that once the presentation is over, I will take any questions in case if someone wants to get some clarifications. So when you take the modern legal systems, increasingly recognize that the gender-based violence is not merely a private matter occurring within the families and relationships. Instead, it is now viewed as a serious human rights violation involving breaches of equality, dignity, one could say the bodily autonomy, and the security. So therefore, this the we say in a legal jargon, we say the state, but of course that the governments have both legal and moral obligations to prevent violence. Number one. Then number two, investigate allegations effectively and protection to victims. Now, legal framework governing gender-based violence therefore consists of both the constitutional protections, criminal laws, the procedural safeguards, evidentiary rules, and international human rights obligations. So, if one looks at the international legal frameworks, and one of the most important international instruments dealing with the gender-based violence is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discriminations Against Women. And this obligates the government to eliminate discrimination against women and adopt effective measures to prevent violence and ensure equality before the law. Sometimes the conventions originally focused on discriminations its interpretations has evolved to recognize violence against women as a form of discrimination itself. The convention encourages the governments to criminalize gender-based violence, protect victims, ensure equal legal protection, and reform discriminatory legal practices. So it's very important when you, if one, basically this is very easy to download, like, if you go to the internet, like, these the conventions are available, you can have it downloaded. And if one looks at it, because that's why, like, these taking into consideration the representations made by several authorities, perhaps the non-governmental organizations, and uh, the people around the world, these institutions internationally has passed these conventions, and now it has become kind of part of the local systems as well. In the second thing, the convention is the Convention on Rights of Children, the right, normally we say the CRC. This is, of course, imposes obligations on the governments to protect children from sexual exploitations, abuse, the neglect, violence, and trafficking. Because if one looks at it, especially when it comes to violence now, you all may have seen, when it comes to the international wars between two countries now, especially in the recent war between Iran, US, and the other country, plus the Gaza, many children are subject to several, the issues, and they have no food, no kind of the protection. They are, kept away from their parents. They are in certain shelters where they don't have, access to the day-to-day life, perhaps of water, light, so education. So in these circumstances, these international conventions, I do not know, like, I have to confess, when it comes to the practicality and practical applicability and enforceability of these conventions, though we have it in writing, there are certain concerns, the way it is expected by the governments, or rather the people around the world. But at least on a structure-wise, we have a legal framework to protect the victims from being subjected to the violence, perhaps based on the gender. So, based on these international conventions, if you look at the domestic, the legal system, we have seen the international human rights conventions have greatly influenced the domestic legal reforms in many countries, including our country, Sri Lanka. These instruments reinforce the principle that violence against women and children is a matter of public concern and the state responsibility, rather than a purely or a private or a issue between the parties, because it is considered as a social responsibility. That is why perhaps the when I listened to Madam Nethanjalee, and she was saying the several government has, or rather the authorities have taken certain steps by setting up places like Mitru Piasa, and I know there is a place called Women in Need. These are in place, of course, Women in Need is exclusively for women. There's one gentleman who posed one of the most important questions: why always we say women, and the references are made to women all the time, but legally, in as far as the legal aspects are concerned, we consider, perhaps sometimes the ladies may not agree, because we consider the women genetically considered as a weaker gender. It is in these circumstances sometimes certain when legislators in their wisdom passed these legislations, they have taken certain, or rather I would say favored certain provisions, or rather tilted certain provisions towards the women and children rather than men. But having said that, as a general practitioner, I have seen, as a lawyer, I have seen there are many instances where the men too are being subject to harassment, perhaps mental and physical both, and certain instances where they have basically lost their lives because of kind of sometimes the violence being committed on the men as well. So therefore that this is a matter that we have to take on case by case, but not just as a kind of, how shall I say, as a general statement. But when it comes to the legal provisions are quite clear. And that takes any persons, like if you look at I will deal with the Domestic Violence Act in a short while. Any person who's being subject to some harassment which fall within the ambit of the act, certainly they are entitled to seek protection from the code of law. So based on these international, the conventions and the treaties, the Sri Lanka way back in 2005 enacted or an act what is called the Domestic Prevention of Domestic Violence Act. And plus we have seen there are certain constitutional protections as well. So under our constitutions, the individuals, the citizens are guaranteed the equality is clearly sets out what individuals are entitled to. So they are entitled, irrespective of your gender, the equality, the equal protection, and freedom from discrimination. So therefore, whether you are a man or a woman or a child or not, so you are entitled to be protected or the freedom from discrimination. That is the fundamental law of the country, the constitution of the Sri Lanka. So therefore, although the constitution does not explicitly mention gender-based violence, the constitutional principles relating to dignity, equality, non-discrimination strongly influence the legislative policy and the judicial interpretation. So then with that, if you go to the penal code provisions of the Sri Lanka, the penal code criminalizes numerous offenses connected to gender-based violence, including rape, grave sexual abuse, sexual harassment, incest, trafficking, assault, cruelty to children, and criminal intimidation. So this is also another important thing. This intimidation is something which oftenly we come across in court, perhaps within the family and outside the family as well. A lot of people, in order to get something achieved, and they use force on another. So therefore that is also being looked into by the legal processes. Therefore the law recognizes that consent obtained through fear, coercion, intimidation, threats, or incapacity cannot amount to a valid consent. So sometimes we have seen between the husband and the wife, this one area, I think a lot of emphasis were added by Madam Mapitigama in her presentation. The violence within the family, it could be against the man or vice versa against the woman. So sometimes the refusal to have the sexual intimacy, so ends up in violence, physical violence, coupled with the mental agony as well. So therefore, can one take up the kind of a position in terms of the present law that using intimidation, perhaps or a force for your wife or a husband to have a sexual a relationship, because these are common matters that we as legal practitioners we come and we advise. So can that be construed to say that it is a violence just committed against another. The legal framework which I'm going to deal with now, certainly it falls within the meaning and the we say the legal ambit of the act, so that it can be kind of tried and tested in court. So in order to meet these provisions, as I said, the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act number 34 of 2005 was enacted by as an act of parliament. So this act formally recognized domestic violence as an issue requiring judicial intervention and protection. So therefore, these are several important orders that can be obtained, especially what are called the protection orders. When someone is subject to some domestic violence, it could be a man or a woman who has been harassed or physically and mentally harassed by another, or rather the spouse. Therefore, that they need certain assistance from you. So in that case, when advising, certainly you are entitled to advice in terms of the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act. There are remedies available. One can obtain what are called the protection orders. And then until the final protection order is obtained, the victim can obtain what is called the interim protection orders. So, interim protection orders includes, preventing the perpetrator even approaching, not only like verbally, but even over the phone, talking to the victim, the children. So likewise, the law has evolved, and the court is now the courts are looking into these provisions very liberally. But of course, having said that, I must confess there are certain instances where these provisions have been abused, and it has been abused to the advantage of the wrongdoer, because sometimes we have seen there are instances where the woman is caught up with having certain extramarital affairs. So the husband is in the process of taking the children away, or in instituting actions to go for a divorce. So in those circumstances, perhaps on certain advice or just as a precautionary step, they run to the police and basically make a complaint that we are being physically harassed. It is on that basis. Sometimes the police, they file papers, or you can even come by way of a private plane. Private plane means the party is entitled to make an application, on their own, the volition to court, rather than going through the police or someone else. So then, these protection orders can be obtained even your husband or the wife from, preventing them from entering into your own house and entering, coming closer to the children. So this, therefore that there had been certain instances, these provisions have been abused. So therefore, especially as medical practitioners, when you all advise, it's more prudent and advisable for you to, whilst, it is important to make them aware of the availability of these legal provisions for them to protect the life and, being subject to violence, physical and mental both. But at the same time, to advise them to not to abuse the provisions in order to take some undue advantage. So that is very important, which I thought I must, basically bring it to a notice, because more than the legal practitioner, it is you as medical practitioners who always come across on daily basis the people who are subject to the physical and mental harassment, perhaps within the family, perhaps within the other social, the stages as well. So importantly, the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act, recognizes not only the physical violence, but also emotional abuse as well. This is very important. Sometimes I think that's why I believe the Madam Mapitigama, when she was, basically, making her presentation, you basically come across clients who do not have physical kind of bruises or any other abuses, but it is the mental abuse that is basically causing the violence of the law. So therefore the the law, all the legal system is now traditionally focused on visible physical injuries, whilst ignoring the psychological harm and cohesive control. So therefore now, with the passage of time and with the evolvement of the law, you don't expect all these victims to have any physical injuries, but the mental, the injuries also, or something which is subject to or rather amenable to the legal processes, where the protection and the safety measures are now introduced to our legal system. So one other important area that is normally we as legal practitioner we take cognizance of is the provisions in the criminal procedure code. This criminal procedure governs the arrest procedures, then recording of statements, investigations, medico-legal examinations, and the trial procedures. Like the proper procedural compliances becomes extremely important, because procedural defects may affect admissibility and fairness. This will result in the dismissal of the actions. So this is very important, because sometimes keeping the record, calling for expert evidence, the victims' statements to the medical practitioners, normally when those things are tried and tested in court, the keeping these recording within a certain procedure, following a certain procedure, keeping some with certain standards, it's very important, so that it could be used as piece of evidence in court without getting into any difficult situations. So other important matter that I wish to bring into your notice is the provisions in the evidence ordinance. Like when it comes to the legal practice, the evidence ordinance universally applicable for both criminal and civil cases. So therefore, when it comes to, it is particularly important in gender-based violence litigation, because the evidence heavily rely upon rather the victim's testimony, medical evidence, forensic evidence, and the experts' opinions. So therefore, law of evidence therefore plays a very decisive role in determining whether justice can be ultimately be achieved. So provided, as I said, if I am to repeat myself, it's very important that to maintain these evidence, the testimonies, the medical evidence, forensic evidence, expert opinions within the framework that is applicable and admissible. We say legally admissible as part of evidence in court proceedings. So this gender-based violence, since it is being inflicted on a human body and a human mind, so it is always considers in most occasions as criminal offenses. So we, like in criminal cases, the standard of proof that is normally used in court is beyond the reasonable doubt. In all criminal cases, you cannot have an iota of doubt when you lead evidence. That is what we say legally, you have to prove it beyond reasonable doubt. So, and when it comes to a commercial or a civil litigation, we say that you have to prove a case on balance of probability. So therefore, this one of the greatest difficulties in the gender-based violence litigation concerns evidentiary standards. In criminal cases, guilt must be out. This high standard exists to protect accused persons from wrongful convictions. In GBV cases, the standard also creates challenges because evidence is often limited perhaps difficult to obtain, because we have seen, because most of the occasions these violence occur, it happens within a family, within a very limited community, so that lot of corroborative evidence perhaps may not be available. It is available only your word against the other word, because only between two persons. So therefore it is very important that uh, that we maintain and we basically substantiate your allegations within the standard of proof, like in most of the cases, like especially when it comes to violence, as I said, if I'm to repeat myself, in that has to be proved and established on beyond reasonable doubt. So then, other one of the main issue that we come across as legal practitioners, the gender-based violence frequently occurs since its private settings without eyewitnesses. Therefore, the survivor's testimony often becomes the primary evidence before court. So historically, courts treated such testimony with suspicion and demanded corroborations, as I said, because of discriminatory assumptions regarding women's credibility. I don't, like sometimes I do not like to use this women's credibility. It's credibility of, if I may say, generalize this, the credibility of the witness, the credibility of the person who was subjected to the violence. So therefore, this modern jurisprudence increasingly rejects those outdated assumptions, then recognizes the credible testimony alone may sometimes sustain conviction. So therefore, most of the occasions, sometimes if you don't find any corroborative evidence, you can always, based on the victim's evidence, that a person can be found guilty. So therefore, this importance of corroborative evidence is something which one must always bear it in mind. Although survivor testimony may be sufficient, corroborative evidence continues to carry a substantial weight when it comes to litigation. So this evidence may include medical reports, DNA evidence, witness testimony, digital communications, photographs, forensic findings. These are, the evidence normally we make use of in courts. And, in order to obtain this evidence, parties can take out commissions. Court orders can be, obtained, and directing these experts to submit these documents. Perhaps if you issue a report after examining a client or a victim, certainly when that is produced, and in order to have the thing verified, or the veracity of the contents of your report, you might be sometimes called on summons to come and testify before court, just for the court to evaluate the evidence, or rather the contents of a report. So therefore, this important, the medical evidence plays a very crucial role, because it may support allegation through documentation of injuries, as I said, the forensic findings, the psychological observations, especially by medical practitioners, the clinical assessment. This is also one of the most important areas, because it is you as medical practitioners make the assessment based on your observations. This clinical assessments is very important, especially when the victim is traumatized, and having the mental kind of sufferings. For a court is not quite equipped, or rather we don't have the knowledge with regard to this specialized area. So therefore we have to rely on your observations, your representations, and your recommendations. So therefore that especially when you are examining a victim and your client, it's always advisable and prudent to maintain a proper record with with certain clarification, so that at a point where you are required to make a representation or rather explanation by way of evidence in court, certainly you can come and make those clarifications in court. So the modern forensic medicine recognizes that absence of physical injuries does not necessarily disprove assault. So that is also very important, because we have seen, or rather, as I explained, perhaps you may not have the physical injuries, but in order to your the assessment based on clinical observations, perhaps it might be very useful when it comes to the proof of the gender-based violence cases in courts. So the victims sometimes show little or no visible injuries because of delayed reporting. These are areas which we find as the main issues in prosecuting the cases successfully. Sometimes fear induced by the paralysis, the threats by perpetrators, and the specific nature of the assault. The medicine therefore rejects outdated assumptions that violent resistance must always produce visible injuries. So therefore, this even not only the legal provisions, the statutory provisions has evolved with the passage of time. Even in the medical field, as far as we are concerned as the legal practitioners, we have seen your assumptions, the recommendations, and the provisions have evolved with the passage of time, where even in the absence of visible injuries, a person could be kind of charged based on your assumptions for gender-based violence. So this medical legal documentation is also very important. It plays a very pivotal role as far as the legal the presentations or the cases are concerned. So this is one area, because that's why I said, like, your recommendations, assessments are very important as far as this specialized subject is concerned. Therefore, it is more prudent and advisable that medical reports must be very objective, and it got to be accurate, and it got to be detailed enough and contemporaneous, because the scholars must clearly distinguish between the observed facts, the patient's assessments, and the professional opinions, because these are areas where we have seen sometimes, unlike in a murder case, when an opinion is expressed by a medical practitioner, especially on a gender-based violence case, because as I said, there could be physical injuries, there could be an absence of physical injuries, especially when you make a clinical assessment regarding the status of a victim, and how you have arrived at your professional opinion is very important. So it should not be a very hypothetical opinion. The opinion based on your professional expertise, perhaps based on the patient's statements and the facts that you have observed. That perhaps it's my attention was very much drawn to the statement made by the Madam Mapitigama, when she was heard to say that some people, they don't come and make a sort of a true and full disclosure of the issues that they come across. They make very reserved comments. Their disclosure is very limited. So it is up to us to basically give them the confidence, and give them the confidence and the physical security of the person, so that thereafter only they open up. Like, even we as the legal practitioners, when it comes to the domestic violence cases, or even the divorce cases, and they take a lot of time to basically explain their main, or rather core of the issue to your counsel. They take a lot of time because they have lost the faith and the confidence in the spouse. Likewise, a person who's subject to, like I'm not especially referring only to the domestic violence. This violence could happen like not only between husband and the wife, children or the parents and the children. It could be among among the peers in an office. So therefore, that it's very important you as a professional to listen to them. And these people, a victim needs lot of time, and they want their side of the story heard properly. Perhaps due to our busy schedules, the lack of time that we can dedicate to one person, sometimes we just perhaps miss a good point. So a person with societal thoughts perhaps may not open their minds just within few minutes. They take a lot of time on that. So therefore, that it is very much advisable to give them sufficient time to the victim to come and explain their issues to you, so that you can give your side of rather the advice properly. So that is when it comes to the medical reports. Then the forensic evidence is or another very important thing. The forensic evidence has become increasingly important in gender-based violence litigation, because this includes DNA analysis, toxicology, the reports, injury pattern analysis, and digital forensic evidence. So these are some of the main the areas, the reports that we always you come across, and we basically produce before court with sufficient the evidence, so that the court can, within the legal framework, they can act on these documents without having any reservations. So therefore, it's very important that you maintain the chain of custody, because the evidentiary value of forensic materials depends heavily upon proper preservation and chain of custody procedures, because improper handling perhaps may result in contamination, challenges to admissibility, reduce reliability. Consequently, forensic the precision becomes legally essential, because otherwise, sometime when you obtain, let's say, a DNA report, DNA report requires, perhaps the consent of parties. Sometimes, if a order of, in terms of the Sri Lankan law, if for a person to, basically donate their blood for a DNA test, you have to get their consent. Of course, in certain circumstances, such as murders or whatever, like you don't have to. On a direction of court, you can certainly obtain a blood sample. But when it comes to DNA test, how until that report is duly proven in courts, there is a chain of custody that has to be properly maintained from the time the blood was extracted from the human body until the test was done, how the test was done, what were the samples that were taken into the consideration. All this chain has to be established within the legal framework. So therefore, that it is very important we as professionals, you as medical practitioners, maintain the chain of custody. That keep that in mind. That is very important. And then, when it comes to the gender-based violence, the psychological evidence is or another matter that is very important for you to take note, because victims frequently experience depression, the anxiety disorders, then post-traumatic stress disorder, then disassociation, suicidal ideations. So these are, the things normally you very frequently come across and you observe from these victims. So therefore, it is very important that you keep a sort of a good record of these matters, so that it could be easily kind of looked into by a court at appropriate stages. And the psychiatric and psychological reports may assist courts in understanding the trauma, explaining delayed reporting, and assessing emotional consequences. So therefore this is also another the important the matters that we always requires, and we always try to educate the other professionals when we come to the gender-based violence cases. And the judicial challenges that we always come across in these major judicial challenges is the delayed reporting, because most of the time victims often delay disclosure because of shame, perhaps fear, perhaps trauma, economic dependency, and threats by perpetrators. Like, we have seen many cases where, like, which is very common and, reported in the media these days. These young children, especially being, the minors, being harassed and sexually abused by many in the society. Most of these cases, like, sometimes don't come before the authorities on time, because it is subject to some of these matters which I just mentioned. Sometimes the parents do not want to kind of expose the children. Perhaps we have seen certain cases where the abusers, the rapes have taken place. The child or a girl or a woman has been raped when she was, like, 6 or 7 years. By the time the case is taken up, the perpetrator is indicted and the case is taken up, the person is at the age of 25, 26. So this has lot of the setbacks. Sometimes that person is married and the husband is unaware of the fact that she was a victim. So these are practical issues that we come across as legal practitioners. So therefore, remember, one of the main challenges that we come across is the delayed reporting due to this the matters which I just mentioned. And then the stereotypes and the biases. This historically, the courts even the often evaluated victims according to stereotypes relating to morality, clothing, sexual history, emotional behaviors. That is why I think Mrs. Mapitigama also mentioned that dress of a person. We being educated professionals, sometimes when a survey is conducted, it is quite heartbreaking to take note that we ourselves have not properly identified, or rather got ourselves properly educated with regard to these the areas. So therefore that it is of course high time that we also look at these issues not only sympathetically, but in a kind of open heart, so that we can advise our the victims more effectively. So therefore this stereotypes continues to influence judicial processes, both consciously, sometimes unconsciously. So therefore that it is very important that having form of a inclusiveness with the victim, so that we can certainly take the matters forward. So I have five more minutes. So certainly I will run through a few other areas which I thought that I must basically for at least for the completeness of my presentation. The other main important is the secondary victimization. Now the victim is subject to certain violence, and now you are in court. What is the other main issue? And the secondary victimization. So this includes perhaps very aggressive cross-examination, repetitive questioning, breaches of confidentiality, long procedural delays, and dismissive institutional responses. Because when these matters are tried in court, as of a right, the defense and the perpetrator is entitled. Mr. Fonseca, can you mute your... looks like we are dealing with some domestic situation with, I think, Nishanta Fonseca. So anyway, so this as of a right. No, I'm just kidding. Don't worry. As far as the defense and the perpetrators are concerned, they are entitled to impeach the credibility of witnesses, including the victim. So therefore, this aggressive cross-explanation, repetitive questioning, attack on their credibility, long procedural delays. So these matters like always, create certain setbacks for a successful prosecution of victims of gender-based violence. So this judicial, sometimes we have seen judicial delays. So these cases often take years to conclude due to congested court systems, procedural delays. So like, for instance, if we are to obtain a report, perhaps on a forensic sum report, and it takes month of Sundays because certain procedures that are to be followed, and violation of procedures set out in the procedural laws perhaps end up in basically releasing the perpetrator from being prosecuted and being found guilty. So therefore these are kind of issues and delays on the part of the judicial the systems that has caused a lot of blockade, I would say, as far as gender-based violence cases or prosecution of these cases are concerned. So then misinterpretation of medical evidence. This is also sometimes we have seen a lot of people, the perpetrators go scot-free because due to the inability perhaps, or rather due to the lack of knowledge of the courts, or rather the officials of court, that we have seen the court sometimes misunderstood the absence of injuries and trauma responses, emotional presentations. And when the experts from the field of the medical field, when they come and testify in court, when they make presentation, when the reports are tendered, sometimes due to the lack of knowledge on the part of the person who are supposed to basically analyze and clinically analyze those evidence, we have seen certain difficulties which we have come across when prosecuting these cases. So when it comes to the child victims in gender-based violence cases, we have seen these cases involving children create additional judicial complexities. Child victims may lack vocabulary to explain abuse, fear authority figures. Sometimes if a 4 or 5 or 6-year-old child who is subject to certain abuse, let's say the sexual abuse, when that person or rather child is being questioned, or rather certain questions are asked by a uniformed officer, I don't think that child would certainly explain herself or rather himself. So therefore that it is very important, or rather we, just as legal practitioners, we always try to educate the authorities, especially the child and protection bureau authorities, and then a few other people or other authorities which work closely with the legal community to take certain or rather appropriate steps, especially to not to go in uniforms, to get the child to basically get familiar with the officer who wants to get basically the evidence or other informations about the incident, or rather to have use the Zoom, not only go through like not to have a physical eye to eye meeting with the victim. Likewise, certain precautionary steps to be taken, and it would be more prudent, like even as medical practitioners, when you all recommend to make recommendations especially these areas as well, so that our productive reports could be obtained and the prosecution could be successfully conducted in court. So in conclusion, if I may uh, kind of be heard, that gender-based violence remains one of the most complex areas within modern legal systems, because it intersects with criminal law, constitutional law, human rights, psychology, forensic science, social inequality. Although legal frameworks have significantly evolved through constitutional protections, criminal legislation, international treaties, and specialized domestic statutes, legal reforms alone is insufficient. Therefore, effective justice requires strong evidentiary mechanisms, trauma informed judicial reasoning, proper medico legal practice, institutional sensitivity, specialized training for legal and medical professionals. Ultimately, the effectiveness of any justice system is measured not merely by the existence of laws, but by whether vulnerable individuals are able to seek protection and justice with dignity, fairness, and humanity. So, therefore, that it is very important that, rather than having a stereotype kind of a system where you try to identify and to find justice for the victims, it is very important that certain areas which I just mentioned is properly followed, so that the prosecution in courts for people who have been subject to violence, especially the gender-based violence, can be successfully prosecuted. So that is the brief, a note that I wished that I should share with you. Of course, certainly I am ready to take up any question from you. Any questions? Dr. Premaratna, are you there, Mrs. Premaratna?
Yes, I'm there. I was, in absence of other questions, if we come across a patients who has sexual domestic violence, what should we do?
Yeah, so it's plain and simple, as I mentioned, Ms. Premaratna. All what you have to do is to maintain a proper record. Proper record is one of the most important thing, and to basically direct them to perhaps it could be a man or a woman, so to the relevant authorities, make a sort of, it's very important as far as the legal prosecutions are concerned under the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act. Better to have the medical reports, and where it is necessary, coupled with the some report from the police would be an ideal, so that it can be successfully prosecuted, and interim orders mentioned in the Domestic Violence Act, Prevention of Domestic Violence, can be obtained, so that the victim will have at least the confidence of not only a protection, but to keep away from the perpetrators under the supervision of court.
Sir, at the point, sorry. Sir, so I was going to ask whether, like, a victim comes to us and tell about her problems, that the husband is not giving sufficient money for her to and her kids to for food and everything, but she does not want to go to the police or complain as well, because she does not have any other means of living or any relatives as well. At that point, how can we help?
Yeah, Ravanti, it's like that is very important. Like, this is the case all the time. And, if the husband is not financially supporting a family, it perhaps it might not fall within the ambit or the purview of abuse. But of course, certainly law provides, the remedies. They can always either can go to the magistrate's court and institute an action, even in the absence of a police report, for support, we say the maintenance cases, or if there is a pending a divorce action. In the divorce action itself, you can seek an order for interim orders. Like interim orders means that while to the judgment being pronounced, the court considering the circumstances of the particular case, make interim orders granting relief, especially with regard to the maintenance. Certainly, remedies are available both in the magistrates court, that's under the Maintenance Act. Of course, if there is a pending case in the district court relating to a divorce, certainly you are well entitled to make an application for maintenance, not only for maintenance, even for the cost of litigation. So we say sometimes most of, certain instances we have come across, the ladies or other women don't have sufficient, financial means to litigate. So there are provisions in our law. So once the case is instituted, and they can ask an order from court directing the husband or rather the financially able person to, pay X amount of money as cost of litigation so that she can meet the end needs. That certainly can be done.
So another question regarding confidentiality.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, Rwanti.
I just want to know, like, if she's not willing to go to the police, and whom should we contact in this case? Like you said, we need to go for the maintenance or things like that. Whom should we contact?
Yeah, if she does not, obviously that is a situation where she does not have money to pay to, basically retain the private lawyer. Certainly, Legal Aid Commission will be the best place to seek legal assistance.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
No worries.
So, if I may ask my question now, this is regarding confidentiality. Now, in a scenario, say for example, in a marital scenario, husband and wife, wife comes and complains through whatever pathway, comes and complains regarding abuse at the hand of her husband. Now, this is an accusation until proven, as far as the law is concerned, no, sir? So now, if the husband, giving a scenario, if the husband comes and asks, the husband gets wind of it, husband comes and asks regarding the accusation the wife has done, regarding to confidentiality, what is the level of confidentiality that we can keep with regarding to what the wife has said, and when do we need to divulge the details of the accusation or the complaint made by the wife at the request of the husband?
Yeah. So that is, Nishant, that is a very important area where we have, like at what point that we can make a disclosure. What is Ramesh, can you please mute your, all right, thank you. So Nishant, so that is very important, because at what stage that you can make a disclosure. Normally what happens is, just because now, for instance, if a wife comes and make a disclosure with regard to the abuse that she suffers or undergoes at the domestic, the environment, and we as the practitioners and the professionals, we as professionals, we are not supposed to make a disclosure, to the husband with regard to the nitty-gritty of the incident at that point. And, so based on the manner in which you are going to, basically share your expertise or rather your expertise in the field of, your field with the husband, sometimes there may be incidents where that, you say that the perpetrator wants to come and, have a discussion with you and wants to know what exactly the wife has, basically told you. So it is, in these circumstances, normally what we advise the professionals or rather especially doctors, just to say that there is a complaint of, abuse. What the nature and the extent of this thing is not, because you aren't supposed to disclose it, because otherwise you can't maintain the confidentiality. But of course, when you are called upon by court on summons to come and make a full disclosure of the incident based on which that you have expressed your opinion, that is the occasion that you have to basically make a full disclosure. But until such time, I think it is not prudent and advisable, just because that person comes and make a demand of the disclosure of these evidence, because we as practitioners have seen that no sooner the disclosure is made, things have got aggravated. Sometimes there had been incidents where stabbing and killing of the victims as well.
Thank you very much, sir, for the very insightful presentation. I just have one question to ask from you, like interim orders, for how long, the duration of interim order? Is there a minimum time period or maximum time period that we can have interim order for a person who have been a victim?
Yes, Lakmali. Yes, that is very important, Lakmali, because as far as domestic prevention of domestic violence act is concerned, no sooner you substantiate your case, because you have to sometimes you have to give evidence in court. The victim has to get into the box and give evidence. So interim order is issued immediately, and it comes into effect no sooner it is basically served on the person, and it is basically applicable, and it is kind of valid for a period of 1 year from the time it is issued. But of course, the opponent is well entitled to come and make an application to have it either altered or rather removed or rather cancelled. But court is, once it is issued, unless and otherwise you have a good evidence, we say the solid evidence, court is very reluctant to kind of have it reversed, because depending on the facts and circumstances of the case. So it is immediately
after 1 year, yeah. So after 1 year, so if you want, can we extend it?
No, after 1 year, like so by that time, people are advised, normally what happens is valid up to a period of 1 year. Thereafter it happens, we have to make yet another application and get it extended.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Priyanti, looks like
yes,
all questions are settled, or rather, I do not know whether I have made myself clearer, but because of the time constraints of time, especially from 9 to 10, sometimes people perhaps may not be wanting to listen to lectures. That's why I just ran through my presentation. I hope that it will be
that's okay, sir. Yes, so then we can conclude the session. As a chairperson of the Women's and Children's Committee College of General Practitioners, I would like to thank the both speakers, Madam and Sir. Thank you very much for your informative lectures. So
thank you very much, Priyanka. It is indeed a great pleasure and an honor to be a part of it, and I hope it is useful. But in case if you need any further clarifications, certainly any day we will oblige to your request. And thank you very much, and good night for everyone. Thank you, Priyanka.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Good night.
Good night.